Some of today's stories are dark and unsettling. Please check the timestamps down below for any stories you may want to skip. Listener's discretion is advised. When I was 16, I got a friend request on Snapchat from someone I'll call Josh. This wasn't particularly unusual for me, and we had mutual friends, so I accepted it. He started talking to me, and I found out he's from my area, but I never liked texting, so the conversation went dry. He would often vent to me about how he just wants to find an obedient wife who would do anything for him. A few days later, he texted me to ask what I'm doing. I was getting ready for my part-time job and told him just that. I had never even said that I had a job before, but he asked me to get him something that is only sold in my area by my restaurant. I didn't think much of it until later. Days passed and we spoke on and off, until one day he mentioned my full first name. I never liked my first name, and I only use it with legal documents and always use a nickname, especially on social media. I immediately asked how he knew my name, and he said that he may have a tad bit of an obsession with me. I asked him where he even knew me from, and he said he saw me walking into my school 3 years beforehand. I would have been 12 or 13, and he said he became obsessed and couldn't forget about me. He ended up telling me that he found my address by following me home as I walked out of school, and he found my family's social media. He was able to prove this by telling me the street I lived on and my mother's full name. I ended up telling my friend about this and tried to pry more information out of him. My friend told me to ask for more proof or information about this, and he ended up telling me that he had followed me for 3+ years that he had known me and gave up just 2 weeks before finding my snap. I asked him for proof, and he ended up describing a guy that I dated that year and the exact color and pattern I had dyed my hair just a month before he added me. It was not a normal pattern, so the fact he was able to describe it scared me. I asked where we ran into each other, and he described a situation where we ran into each other at a local grocery store, one I used to work at, and that I was with a short Asian girl with long black hair. That is the description of one of my best friends at the time. We would often go to the particular store after school to get food or drinks before I started work. After all of this, he asked me if there was still a chance we would ever be together. I was very scared to say no because I've previously had an experience where a guy I knew would get aggressive or angry with me when I shut down the idea of us ever having a life together. So I just kept saying, maybe. Not long after I was working, when I saw the car Josh had sent me snaps of in the parking lot of my workplace. I had memorized his license plate, and it was the exact same. I broke down and blocked him when I got home. Whenever I see a car that looks like his, my anxiety spikes. To this day, I'm terrified to leave my house. If I need to go anywhere, there has to either be one male who looks big or 2 other people with me at all times. I'm also paranoid and constantly looking over my shoulder all the time. I haven't had any updates since I blocked him. Now, this all began in my junior year of high school. I'm 19 right now, but I was 17 at the time. I felt like talking to no one that year. Sure, I had a group to always sit with at lunch, but I didn't really engage in much chatting. I just ate and then walked to my next class as usual. Anyway, there was always this one kid in all my classes that used to bully me in my freshman year. It all stopped once I started faking being his friend and everything. It is also important to know that this guy has always had a crush on me and a special ed. Not judging, but just to put that out there for you to understand why people acted the way they did when I told them what happened. He would always get angry whenever I would talk to another boy and try to fight them like I was somehow his property or something. This dude also has a weird obsession with horror movies in a weird way, and always talked about how he wishes he was the killer in those movies. Well, he had always liked me since freshman year, unfortunately. With that being said, it all began one day just me sitting in my second period. Our teacher had moved us to the library that day, so I was sitting next to the guy at that moment. I have to put a reminder to you all that I only talked to this guy because even though I had to fake it at first for him to stop bullying me, I genuinely did really want to be friends with him. And since I'm unfortunately actually a kind person, I wanted to give him a chance given he had no friends. You're going to understand why I said that in just a moment or two. After I scrolled one more time on my phone, he asked if I had Discord, which I said yes. "Give me your user," he said, almost demanding it. For some reason, I gave it to him because, again, I genuinely wanted to talk to him. The moment he added me, I noticed something about his profile picture. He was matching with someone. Now, I'm not one to pry into someone's business, but I noticed it was a couple matching profile pictures. I was surprised this dude even had a girlfriend. He did not have that good looks, and that's not me trying to be mean. He also had an ugly personality on top of that. Now you're wondering why I'm even adding this to the story. Well, I want to give you guys an idea of how he is and what he's done to make the story more understandable. Now, to give you a picture, I will give you a description of what he looks like. He has blonde, curly, almost afro hair, his skin color is white, and he has pimples and wide, huge blue eyes. He also has crooked teeth due to his bad diet. He always ate candy in the morning along with a store-bought Starbucks drink. For his height, the guy is tall as fuck. I'm not even exaggerating. Even though I said he has a poor diet, he's skinny but a wimpy kid. As for his personality, he's a rude asshole to everyone and even the teachers. Most of the time he skips classes, and when he doesn't, he's always on his phone and does no work. Of course, the teachers, and including the principal, didn't mind it that much since in their eyes his condition was always the cause for his rebellious actions apparently. I'm not going to go into too much of his rebellious side since the story's long enough already, but the last thing I'm going to say about him is that he's the lonely kid at our school, to be honest. He made himself popular that way because he would always stare at classroom door windows and at people and give them a creepy death stare. Another creepy thing that I got informed about was how my aunt was waiting to pick up my cousin at the school entrance. She caught him sitting behind a tree mumbling and laughing to himself. He also apparently chases girls just to scare them off at our schoolyard. Then when he's done, he laughs to himself once again. Now that you have a better picture of him, you can understand why I was confused about how he got a girlfriend. When I told my friend about this in 4th period, she was just as shocked as I was. "So, who is she?" my friend said. "I don't know. I don't think she even goes to this school." The moment I said this, I realized the dude doesn't even hang out with anyone. It's most likely that she came from online. Fast forward to what's happening. I realized he has a group chat in Discord with a bunch of people he knew. What stunned me is that they were all underage. I'm talking about 12 to 13 to even 14-year-old kids. This kid is 16 and 17 in a couple of months, and also about to be a senior, so that's why it was kind of weird to me. I started to engage in his group chat at first since I was curious. This was also before I knew it was full of minors. The first thing I said was hello, and a bunch of the kids started to welcome me with those welcome stickers Discord has whenever you first talk to someone. Anyway, ever since I started to engage in this group chat, sometimes when I'm bored, he started to talk to me through single DMs. I of course responded because I'm not rude. Plus, I actually did enjoy talking to him a little before I even knew about his background. But I always responded with dry things like, cool, or that's nice. I was kind-hearted but not naive. I knew this guy was something to watch out for deep inside, so I kept my distance. Ever since then, he started to talk to me more and more than usual, which kind of bugged me considering I liked being alone most of the time. But I must admit, it was my own fault for even responding to his messages, so I asked for it. Shit, I said to myself. I was sleeping in class one day and I wasn't on my phone at that moment. For the sake of this story, I'm going to call this kid Alex and I'm going to call myself Delaihlah. Anyway, Alex sat across from me. He then woke me up by calling out my name. Delaihlah! What? I said, sounding irritated already because he woke me up. Look what I sent you! I picked up my phone and opened Discord. It was a picture of me sleeping. I was disturbed. My head was face down, so I of course didn't even acknowledge him taking a picture of me. My face was straight, but inside I felt unhinged. This kid took a picture of me with a side note of him saying, "Wake up." I responded with a text by saying, "Legit." Now, this is where the story gets kind of creepy. When I was replying to someone in the group chat, completely forgetting I was even in it, considering I don't even use Discord, I stayed there just to stay because I was genuinely too lazy and busy with schoolwork. Besides, I mainly stayed for the drama that was happening constantly there. Looking back at it now, I was stupid not to leave it. I guess I was a dumb high schooler. I noticed that this girl joined. When she said hi in the group chat, I immediately noticed that she had the other side of the profile picture Alex was wearing. For some reason, I sent her a friend request, and we got along. Someone in the group chat confirmed my suspicion about this girl being Alex's girlfriend, and because of that, I wanted to know if she was the same age as me or what school she went to, considering everyone in the server was literally a kid. The next day, this other random girl messaged me. I didn't know this person, but she said she came to me because she knows I knew him in real life and wanted to talk to me because she was uncomfortable with Alex. She was supposedly a now ex-friend of his. That being said, the moment I responded by saying, "What's wrong?" she sent me a whole paragraph of disturbing things. To put it short, Alex almost forced this little girl to send him a picture of her boobs and thighs. I got more disturbed by the fact that this girl said she was 12. Yes, 12 years old. I also came to know that he has been saying this to other underage girls. That's when I thought about his girlfriend. I sent her a text by saying, "Hey, quick question. How old are you?" She said she was 14 years old. I was disgusted. This girl was in middle school, and this kid was about to be a senior. Now, the moment she said this, the other girl's notification popped up. She began to inform me on how Alex had a gun at home. I was now even more concerned at this point, especially when I remembered I saw him looking at guns in my freshman year. I reported it, of course, at the time, hence why he probably hated me from now on. I also remembered how he has mental issues and how his parents are divorced. Also, his no friend problem, especially with his lack of social life. What I'm getting at is that he's too mentally unwell to own a gun, especially with the school shootings that have been happening around my area lately. I became overwhelmed with information that I never even knew about Alex. I decided to dig deeper and found out that Alex was catfishing his girlfriend. Now, you're going to be thinking, why am I even doing an investigation about this whole ordeal instead of telling someone? That's because my own mental health was horrible, to say the least. I couldn't really think straight that much. Plus, I'm a type of impulsive person that doesn't like injustice. When I figure out someone is getting bullied or someone's getting harassed, I get this anger in my body and I act without hesitation, especially if it involves child endangerment. So that's what's happening here. Anyway, he wasn't lying about how he looks. He was lying about his age, name, and even his birthday. The fact that the girlfriend didn't even know any of this just baffled me. I decided to tell my friend about this the next day, and she was just as disgusted as I was. She then encouraged me to tell his girlfriend the truth and for them to break up. I, of course, did just that. When I told his girlfriend the truth about everything and about all the creepy things he had done, she broke up with him. After I said that, she said she felt so betrayed. I felt bad for the girl, but it had to be done. After I was done with my last saying about Alex, the ex-girlfriend, whom I'll now call Stephanie, texted me that he had also asked her for thigh pictures. I was disgusted once again, and even more of the fact that this girl didn't even know why. I've had enough of this diabolical news. I started to talk to him with a more cold face and started to cuss him out whenever he came close to me. Bro still didn't get the hint that I didn't want him around me. Now that his girlfriend broke up with him, he was more off his phone and he unfortunately started sitting closer to me. One day our physics teacher told us to sit somewhere in the cafeteria for her to talk with her girls. She's a volleyball coach too, so that's why I called them that. When I was texting my other friend at one of the lunch tables, he sat next to me and said something very creepy that to this day I still get shivers. "I'm going to rape you." then touch you more inappropriately and no one will ever find out. I got offended that moment and I was just shocked. He grabbed my jacket and quickly pulled it away. I went to sit at another table where my friend was sitting. I told him everything that he had told me, and he got mad and was actually about to fight him for me. His other friend told him to calm down, and he actually did. The next day, my teacher was walking me to lunch, and Alex was unfortunately tagging along too, considering we had the same teacher. Keep in mind, I only had one class that's not with him. Once my teacher parted halfway to the cafeteria, he was behind me. Like close behind me, too close for comfort. I quickly caught up with what he was trying to do. He was trying to follow me to lunch, possibly sit next to me and my friends, or maybe he thought I was going to the courtyard, which I was. It was concerning because I always sit in the courtyard alone. I was just about to pass the library when I told him. "Never mind, I'm going to the library," I said. Then he said in return, "Oh really?" He was disappointed, but he just walked away thankfully. I do have to praise my acting skills at this point because he genuinely thought I was still being buddy-buddy with him. I went into the library and made sure the coast was clear before going to the courtyard. As usual, I sit alone in a quiet area. For some reason, I didn't text my friends about what happened. I was just scrolling through my phone processing what just happened. Now, after all this, I still didn't report it. This is a few weeks after everything happened. I told my trusted teacher about the things he has said and done to people. The teacher, of course, took the rape threat seriously and reported it to the administrators of the school. The story is going to get a bit more intense. I was sitting in my 8th period just listening to music and playing a game. My teacher called out my name and told me the counselors wanted to talk to me. Without a doubt, my signature counselor talked with me about the rape threats. I told him also about everything that he did too, and he took this matter seriously. I also told him he planned on following me home. He asked me why I didn't tell anyone about this. I didn't think it was that serious at the time. I mean, sure, the threats and everything were disturbing, but I wasn't scared of him one bit. Fast forward to what's happening. My counselor made me write a statement of all the things he's been doing and saying. After I did all of that, I handed the paper to my counselor and he turned it in to review it to the assistant principal. A few weeks went by and I was starting to feel more comfortable with myself, knowing that the school's going to finally do something about it. That all changed in an instant though. I was in my 5th period and I got a notification from Stephanie sending me a text with the words, "He knows." And then I saw a screenshot of him saying the most messed up shit I ever read. The text said, "That hoe is a traitor, and traitors need punishment." And then the next paragraph was his friend trying to calm him down because he had planned to hurt me and possibly kill me. This was enough for me. I left the group chat and blocked Alex. I had a full-on panic attack and started crying. The teacher took me outside and I couldn't walk. She calmed me down and took me outside to go to the counselors to report the severe threat. I was actually scared this time. I didn't think he would do anything drastic like that to me. I arrived at the counselors and told him what happened. The thing that pissed me off was how unserious he took the threat. I got so angry and explained in rage and in slight tears how serious this was, and he still didn't really change his attitude. To make me feel better, he called my mom and told her about the threat and asked for me to be picked up. I was happy that my mom actually had the reaction she was supposed to have, something no one in the staff of the school had. I got picked up and I was embraced in a tight hug from my sister. She cried uncontrollably, and I held her too. I don't know why, but that must have impacted me really hard considering I was sitting on the couch and staring at nothing for 10 minutes straight. My mom didn't let me go to school for that week, and she let me stay home where it was safe. Later on, I got another screenshot about the 2 girls I befriended. One of them were his ex-friends, and another guy named Astro. He was the guy in the screenshot calming Alex down. The screenshot was about them saying and begging Alex not to harm me in that moment, confirming my speculation about what he was about to do to me that day. Of course, I was smiling about how these people were standing up for me, but I knew it wouldn't change his mind considering they actually aren't here. Now, after all of this, my mom got angry at the school for not doing anything at the start, and to be honest, I was too. After my mom went to the school in person, the school finally and willingly did something. I wouldn't say it was something of a drastic change and a solution, but all they did was make him sign a contract of a restraining order by the school. Not by the law, but by the damn school. Like that's even going to do anything. My mom couldn't even talk to the police because the school said they had to do something about it first. I've graduated high school now. However, in my senior year, I used to only see him in the hallways. I didn't like it one bit. Why? Because he always gave me a stare like he's going to murder me every time I walked by. I didn't engage in eye contact back. I instead just pretended to stare at my phone and laugh at something to give him a hint that I didn't see him back. I used to be very wary around the school every time I was alone, but I knew I always had to be with someone considering his intentions. I moved to a different school before my graduation because of family personal problems. To put it short, I was not safe and had to press charges against my parents. I'm living with my brother now, still trying to get a job. I don't know where Alex is now, and frankly, I don't want to. I just hope he's in jail now. Until then, please stay wary of the people you're talking to. An interaction I had 7 years ago still keeps me up at night wondering what I escaped from. If what I did was the reason I escaped, or if I escaped from anything at all. I was 20 years old and driving from my dorm at UT Austin to my parents' house in Dallas. It was late. I had ungodly hours in college, and I started driving home around 12:30 a.m. I stopped for gas at a gas station off the highway close to Temple at around 1 a.m. The gas station is closed and I'm the only one there. I turned to the pump and put my card in when I heard 2 cars coming. I turn and I see that I've been blocked in. One car diagonal blocking me in from the front, and one doing the same blocking me from the back. I see 2 men in the car blocking me from the back, and I watch as they both get out. One stands by the passenger door and the driver starts walking towards me. He has a very obvious gun in his waistband. I faintly hear someone get out of the car blocking me from the front. I freeze and watch as who I now believe to be the guy in charge takes a few steps towards me. He's still a good 4 feet away, but noticeably closer than the others. He says something like, "Why are you out here so late?" I took the whole situation in, and for some reason I cannot completely understand, I started flirting hard. Honestly, I mostly blacked out, but I remember vaguely saying something like, "I'm on my way from college, but apparently got lucky enough to run into you." It probably wasn't that smooth, but I was laying it on hard. Like I told the man he should take me to dinner sometime. What the fuck? I then gave him my number, a Google Voice number that I had actually created for creeps who I suspected were going to call it with me in front of them to prove that I didn't give them a fake number. He went from serious but aloof to serious with a smile pretty quick. Then sure enough, he called the number to make me prove it was real. I held the phone up with a smile, and just like that he smiled, made a hand signal to his goons, and got back in the car and left. I got into my car and cried, then deleted the Google Voice number and deleted the app because I was so spooked. Maybe dumb in hindsight. I never told anyone but my therapist, but I've never been able to knock it from my head. What were they planning? Was me fawning the thing that saved me? If so, how? Why? Did I just throw them off guard? Be unpredictable? Kill the chase? Did they do this to other people too? Has anyone else had this happen to them? Were they just trying to scare me and this was all in my head? I can't figure it out. I'm a 25-year-old female, but at the time of this story I was 20, and it's just now fully hitting me how unhinged this experience was. The year was 2021, and I was preparing to move away to Florida for college. I lived in Virginia at the time, so this was going to be a pretty big change. I was just getting on dating apps with no interest in anything serious, as I had just gotten out of a serious relationship a couple of months prior. I made this very clear on my profile. Well, fast forward a week or so, I eventually matched with a person who I'll call Riley for the purpose of the story. We had been friends with benefits for about a month. They did live about an hour away, so we only saw each other once a week. This agreement was very mutual, or so I thought. Since we met, we had many talks that when I move away, we would break things off but still keep in touch. Truthfully, we were more friends than benefits. However, they started to show me that they may not have been on board with that arrangement. It first started with me noticing they wrote my name on the white part of their black Converse. I asked Riley why they did this if we weren't official, to which they responded, "I was going to let you have them when you moved to Florida." I'm not even the same shoe size as them, so I found this strange but chose not to question it further. A few days later, we were going to have a lunch at Panera. We sat in the parking lot in Riley's red Corolla preparing to head in when my phone buzzed with a notification. They grabbed it without even asking. After a few seconds of holding it, Riley turned away from me to face the window and then tossed the phone in my lap. I looked down to the screen and I saw it was an email from the college I would be attending. It was simply a "We're excited to see you in the fall" email. I asked them if they were okay and what compelled them to grab my phone like that. Riley didn't respond. They just started crying, loudly, only to be interrupted with the occasional guttural scream. I had no idea what to do, so I just leaned over to hug them. This went on for about 15 minutes, with passerbys looking into the car concerned. That evening, I called Riley. It didn't even sound like the same person from earlier. They were chipper and happy. I asked them what happened at lunch, why they erupted to tears, why they screamed like an animal for 15 minutes. I didn't even put two and two together about the email until Riley said Florida in a toddler-like pouty voice and switched back to melancholy. I explained that we agreed to the way things would be between us and brought up how a couple of days ago they had even mentioned they were talking to someone else and they may become exclusive. This I was completely fine with. However, Riley responded with, "I only said that to see how you'd react." After that, I suggested that we take a few days of no contact so we can see how we feel. But I did emphasize that I was there for them if they needed me, as it felt like they were going through something. A day or so into the no contact, I made plans to see the new Halloween movie Halloween Kills on Saturday with one of my high school friends to have one last hangout before I moved to Florida. Not even 5 minutes after booking the tickets, my phone lit up with a text from Riley, an uncharacteristically enthusiastic message stating, "Want to hang out on Saturday?" with a smiley face. I responded, "I have plans for this week. Nothing else." I didn't want to have a conversation that would lead to another meltdown or insinuate that I was interested in being back in contact just yet. I thought that would be it, but the text kept coming in saying things like, "Plans? Like what? And want to get on Discord and play something?" Each message had question marks followed by exclamation points and like lots of random emojis. I ignored the messages until I saw one come in with no emojis or punctuation. "Want to see Halloween Kills on Saturday?" I stared at the words, bewildered by the coincidence. Or so I thought it was a coincidence. I replied letting them know that I couldn't Saturday, but I never told them at any point that I was seeing the movie on Saturday. Saturday rolls around and my friend who I'll call Julius and I are sitting in our seats at the movie theater. I remember being so happy because it was an empty theater due to our showing being at 11 p.m. The trailers come and go and I think we're going to be the only ones in the theater when, right as the first scene plays, an individual in all black with their hood up sits one seat away from me. I'm immediately uncomfortable because there's an entire theater of seats until I look down and it all makes sense. This individual was wearing black Converse with my name on them. I whispered to my friend who I had caught up with when we arrived that Riley was right next to me. Julius looked over bewildered. He immediately got up and walked 2 rows behind us and I followed. A few minutes passed and Riley followed. He wasn't saying anything or even looking at me, so we stuck the movie through. Right as the credits rolled, and the same eerie precision they arrived, Riley darted out of the theater. Once in the lobby, Julius and I agreed to hang back to make sure they're gone before we head to our cars. After about 10 minutes of chatting, he walks me to my car and I drive away. As I'm waiting for the light to give me the green arrow so I can turn into my neighborhood, I see a car pull out of there with headlights off. I realize in an instant that I'm looking at a red Corolla. This is my last straw. I begin to follow Riley as I spam call them, but each call gets denied. Finally, they picked up, and I immediately launched into them asking, "What are you doing?" Riley responds with a forced nonchalant voice, "Nothing, just about to go to bed." I snap back, "You fucking liar. I'm literally right behind your car right now, and I saw you at the movies." "I did go to the movies tonight, but I didn't know you would be there." I brought up how he lives an hour away and sat right next to me. Riley argued that they just wanted to go for a drive and they ended up at the movie theater right by my house out of pure coincidence. Yeah, sure, dude. I then realized the most important question hadn't been asked yet. Why were you peeling out of the neighborhood like a bat out of hell? I wasn't. He whined in that toddler-like voice that I had heard days before. "Riley," I sighed, frustrated. "I just wanted my stuff back since you wanted to break up with me so badly," they said. Did they really just say that? I thought to myself, break up? I shouted, "We were never even official." Out of nowhere, Riley just began to scream that animalistic scream while intentionally swerving in the middle of the desolate road. At this point, I was totally fed up. I hung up, turned around, and drove until my tires met my driveway. Once in the safety of my room, Riley's number was promptly blocked and my dating apps deleted. "Hey, you got home safe?" Julius asked as I joined our Discord call. "Man, you don't even know the half of it." I told him the whole story about the text and him being in my neighborhood. How could he possibly have known we would be there? Just then, I received a Gmail notification that a device nowhere near me had logged into my account. The location flagged in the same town Riley lived in. Finally, it all clicked. Those cafe lunches where I would have my laptop with me to do schoolwork, and I would go to the bathroom leaving it open and my phone right next to it. I don't know how they did it, but somehow Riley must have gotten themselves on my Gmail and seen the email ticket confirmation. Julius and I spoke for an hour or so on how insane this all was before deciding that changing my passwords and blocking Riley on everything would solve the situation. We hopped on Overwatch, and over the coming weeks, I forgot about the situation. My mom handed Riley their stuff back so I didn't have to, and I was halfway through my drive to Florida with my entire life packed into the car's trunk. I stopped at a rest stop with a coffee in hand when I felt a sense of excitement for my new beginning when my phone buzzed with a notification from Snapchat. "Lil Riley Uwu has tagged you in their story," the notification read. Fuck, I forgot to block them on Snapchat. I never use it and I often forget it even exists until I get a notification. I clicked the pop-up and was brought to a picture of Riley's PC monitor. On the monitor was an application for the same college I would be attending in the fall, with the caption, "See you soon." My stomach turned and I was tempted to drive all the way back to Virginia. However, I realized it was only an application and not proof they got in. I blocked their Snapchat, continued my drive, and began what would be a very happy life in Florida. To this day, I still check their social media to make sure they really didn't follow me. Riley, if you're listening to this, I really hope you got the help you needed. This didn't happen to me, but I heard this from some friends of mine and even saw some articles online about this. I live in southern Minnesota. This incident took place in a town miles away from the town I live in. It was in the town of Hanska. At 4:30 in the morning on November 2nd, 2025, a young boy called 911 to report that his mom's ex-boyfriend had broken into their home and shot her and her new boyfriend. He allegedly shot her new boyfriend while he slept, and then shot and killed her too. The 13-year-old boy saw the guy who shot them. The guy then pointed the gun at the boy, telling him to go back to his room. The guy who killed the two people in the double murder was indicted on first-degree murder charges in connection with the November 2nd, 2025 shooting deaths of the couple in Hanska, Minnesota. He was accused of breaking into their home and shooting both victims with a shotgun. The guy fled the scene and was the subject of a multi-state manhunt. He was apprehended by law enforcement in Iowa near the town of Letts after a high-speed chase where he allegedly fired a shot at pursuing deputies. A pit maneuver was used to disable his vehicle, and he was taken into custody after a brief foot pursuit. He was initially charged with second-degree murder, but a grand jury later indicted him on multiple first-degree murder charges, including premeditated murder and a murder with a pattern of domestic abuse. The first-degree murder charges carry a maximum penalty of life in prison without parole if he's convicted. He also had a history of domestic abuse convictions and an open stalking case against his ex-girlfriend filed in July 2025. This news shook me, since where I live we had very low crime rates. Hanska also has low crime rates too. Despite that double murder taking place there, it's something you don't expect in a small town, especially with little to no crime. The killings deeply affected the small community of Hanska, with the mayor noting that the senseless manner of the deaths had shaken the community to its core. My heart goes out to the boy who experienced that scary incident that early morning. I would never wish this on anyone. Hey guys, so I just wanted to say that I did research this, and this really was a real case that happened. It looks like the killer was named Randy Zimmerman. I'll have a news article in the description if anyone wants to check that out. Rest in peace to the victims. Truly a tragedy that should have never happened. My name is Summer. I'm 22, but the story happened when I was 14. I moved from California to Indiana when I was 14. My adoptive mother and I were the only ones living in the house. At first, we had a 2-story house on a much bigger property than 2 people really needed. After moving out of there, my mother, which I should also mention was my biological grandmother, had her son, who we'll call Tony, help her move to Indiana. Tony was in his 40s, I believe. For a while, he had his own place, but eventually he ended up moving into our pool house. My Uncle Tony and I didn't get along. It seemed like he was always trying to make me look like a bad kid in front of my grandmother. For example, being 14, there were a lot of things I didn't know. One of them was just that if you're prescribed antibiotics, you're supposed to take the entire prescription, not just stop taking them once you start feeling better. I had been prescribed antibiotics for strep throat, and I wanted to keep the bottle, so I put the rest of the medicine in a baggie and threw it in the trash. One day I was called downstairs and my uncle said, "What's this? I found this by the bushes outside." At first, I didn't recognize the pills. "Oh, those are my strep antibiotics. I started to feel better, so I threw the rest of them away." My uncle responded, "Uh-huh. Then why were they by the bushes?" I told him I really didn't know. Maybe a raccoon had gotten into the trash. That was honestly my best guess. Fortunately, my grandmother could tell I was just being a dumb 14-year-old and explained that I needed to finish all of my antibiotics next time. Another time, our dog had gone to the vet and they had given us these little syringes. There were no needles on them. They were just filled with medicine that you would basically feed to the dog. There were probably 4 to 6 of them. For some reason, we kept the empty syringes and put them in a junk drawer. Yet again, my uncle was rummaging through our drawers and found them. I was called downstairs and confronted. "What are these? I found these in here." Irritated, I told him, "Those were Batman's medicine syringes." My grandmother validated what I had said. Anyway, my grandmother was bipolar, I think. She didn't get along with me or my mother. It was like she only really liked her son. One day my grandmother told me that the house and everything she owned would eventually be inherited by me. She said she wasn't going to leave anything to either my mother or my uncle. Again, my grandmother could be a horrible person. From what my mother had told me years earlier, my grandmother's mother had died and my grandmother inherited some of her things. She gave some of those things to my mother and uncle, but eventually both of her children had burned their bridges with her. I guess my grandmother held a grudge and decided that everything would eventually go to me. When my uncle found out about this, he was extremely upset. One day I wanted to go swimming. We had an in-ground kidney-shaped pool. I think the deepest part was around 9 or 10 feet. My grandmother was inside and my uncle was swimming with me. We came up with a game. Basically, we would play wrestle in the pool and splash each other. I noticed that he kept dunking me underwater. So I specifically told him, if you see me put up the peace sign with my hand 2 fingers up, that means I need to be let up for air. I specifically told him this, and he understood. A couple of times during the game, I used the sign when I needed air, and he let me back up. My uncle was also a heroin addict. My grandmother refused to believe my mother when she told her this, and continued to let him stay in our pool house. I'm not sure if he was using that day before getting in the pool or if he simply had bad eyesight, but at one point I watched him swim toward the deep end and hit his head on the wall. He then swam back over to me and dunked me underwater again. I immediately held up my peace sign. He didn't let go. I started panicking. I was desperately waving my hand trying to show him that I needed air. I know the peace sign was directly in front of his face. He was holding me underwater with both hands. I was very petite and he was a much bigger guy, so the struggle to get back up was very real. I was next to the side of the pool and I started grabbing onto the edge, desperately trying to pull myself up. I actually managed to get my head above the water, but he was still trying to pull me back in by my shoulders. I've never been so scared in my life. I was gasping for air and using every ounce of strength I had to keep myself attached to the side of that pool. I was trying to pull my entire body out of the water. I was screaming, "Stop! Let go of me!" Finally, he let go. I crawled over the edge of the pool and got up. I started walking away from the pool, absolutely sobbing. "Why didn't you let me up? I showed you the peace sign. I couldn't breathe." All he said was, "Oh, stop. Such a crybaby. You're being so dramatic." I wasn't being a crybaby. I was fucking scared. I knew I almost didn't make it out of that pool. I was very lucky that I had been a swimmer my entire life and had a lot of experience in the water. I held myself as I cried while walking inside. The last thing he said to me was, "Don't be asking me to swim with you anymore, crybaby." I didn't tell my grandmother or even my mom about what happened for about 1 or 2 months. When I finally told my mom, she was pissed. She wasn't completely shocked that he would do something like this, but she knew why he had done it. My inheritance was worth more to him than my life. I told my grandmother what happened, and again, she was a horrible person about it. She told me I was making it up for attention. She refused to believe that her precious son could ever be the kind of person who would try to kill someone, or even someone who would do drugs. A year later, when I was 15, my uncle was living with us yet again. This time he lived in our basement, while my older brother had moved into the pool house. It was the night before the day of freshman or sophomore year. My grandmother and I went to go pick up McDonald's for everyone. When we got back, I yelled outside that the food was here. No one answered. I went upstairs and started watching Grey's Anatomy. Then I heard sirens. At first, I thought they were part of the show. They weren't. The sirens were coming from my driveway. Apparently, my brother and uncle had been snorting lines of heroin that were laced with fentanyl. My uncle died of an overdose in that same pool house. And in case you're curious, I wasn't lying when I said my grandmother was a horrible person. Eventually, she burned her bridge with me too. She decided to get rid of damn near everything she owned, and she sold the house. My uncle bought into her lies and hatred so completely that he was willing to risk killing me over an inheritance, and that's something I'll never forget. I was a 22-year-old female heading to work this morning, and I had to stop to get gas. Now, gas is so expensive right now, especially where I am. I don't know what it's like in other places, but it's like on average over $4 a gallon here. So you can imagine my excitement when I see a gas station selling gas for $3.69 per gallon. I pulled in somewhat impulsively because I was for sure gonna get that cheap gas. I got out of my car and started pumping my gas like normal. I grew up in a somewhat sketchy area, and I've always been very aware of my surroundings. Who's around me at all times was always something I was taking note of, especially when alone. So I'm standing there waiting for my gas to finish pumping. I would have gotten back in my car if it weren't for the fact that someone told me I legally have to stand next to the gas handle when it's pumping. I don't know, but there I was. I see a man walking into the parking lot and immediately take note of him. He sits down on a stair about 25 feet away from me. He's just minding his business. I'm minding mine. But due to past experiences, of course, I'm keeping an eye on everything around me. I don't notice him even look at me once. Suddenly, he gets up and he starts to walk in my general direction, but he's not looking at me at all, like no eye contact or anything. So I figured he's going to go into the shop or go to throw something away. Eventually, he gets close enough that I realize that he is indeed coming over to me. He leans on one of those gas station poles and then says, "Hey, how you doing?" And I just say, "Hey, I'm good." You know, typical response. And I know this is probably going to be yet another creepy situation, but I don't feel too scared because I have my pepper spray with me like I always do. In fact, it was in my hand at that very moment. However, what he said next really shocked me. "Do you want to get murked?" I said, "What?" "Do you want to get murked?" he repeated. I heard what he said. I was just so shocked. What do you mean?" At this point, I don't know why I was even asking, but I didn't really know what to do. Then he said, "You don't want to have no kids or nothing? No husband?" I didn't answer him. He continued, "You just want to watch the world burn?" I shook my head. I had to finish up with the gas pump, and at this point it was done, and I said, "Absolutely not." And as I was finishing up with my gas hatch opening thing, he said, "Oh, so you nice?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What's your name?" "My name's..." I honestly don't remember his name. I then said, "I'm not telling you my name when you walk up to me talking like that." To which he responds with, "Oh, I'm sorry," in a somewhat demeaning tone. He wasn't sorry, he wanted something. That kind of tone. I just said, "Okay, I gotta go work though." He continues to beg things of me as I got into my car and quickly locked the door. He came up to my window and was gesturing and mouthing, "I can make you happy." I shook my head at him and just drove away. Later, I looked up the word murked, and sure enough, it meant what I thought. Killing, beating up, dominating. But the fact he brought up, "You don't want no kids or nothing," makes me think he was referring to something else. I have to admit, I'm not fluent in slang by any means, but I really fear that it was somewhat of a sexual threat. Google says it can be used that way. Either way, it was the scariest thing someone's ever come up to me and said, and I don't know if anyone's able to provide any further clarification on what he could have meant. Luckily, he wasn't aggressive or anything, but what the hell? I'm glad I got out of there. I grew up in a small beach resort town. It was remarkable for two things: a large collection of Victorian-era mansions and a tiny year-round population. When the tourists left at the end of the summer, it became a ghost town. Most of the workers and business owners would go somewhere else until early spring. If you stayed, well, it was because you didn't have any options. My family wasn't as well-to-do, so we'd close up most of the hotel and retreat to a few rooms, conserving heat and power until next season. In 1982, our town was barely holding on. In the summer, we pretty much got overflow from the surrounding beach towns with their newer, better-appointed hotels, fancier restaurants, and nicer beaches. There was a national recession, so there weren't as many tourists. Some of those fancy mansions were abandoned or burned down for insurance at the end of the season. I had a small group of friends in junior high. We were into role-playing games, sci-fi, and fantasy. Teo, Philo, and I were the only members of the group not named Brian or Matt, two of each. We played D&D when we could until we got kicked out of that house. When weather permitted, we'd go to the salt marshes or a closed-down industrial site and skirmish with handmade wooden melee weapons. One December evening, we were packing up to leave Brian Two's house when Steve came into the room. Steve was Brian 2's older brother. At the time, we thought he was cool. He had quit school, had a job on a fishing boat, and a car. He also had a real sword, which he claimed was a war trophy from his grandfather. Steve suggested that we should go with him to explore the closed-up Moose Lodge, a mansion about a mile from their house. All of us had been on the grounds of the property since there were paths that led to the salt marshes behind the building. Steve seemed really insistent that we should go visit it that Sunday. A few of us agreed. Steve told us a few times that we should come in from the salt marsh side so that nobody would see us. Sunday came around and it turned out that everybody had something else to do. I was careful to approach the Moose Lodge from the back. To maintain stealth, I hid in some bushes to scope out the situation. Behind the building was an open backyard big enough to park a few cars. There was one, a red Mercedes diesel sedan with 2 occupants. Steve was in the passenger seat and an older man wearing a cap was in the driver's seat. I remember walking out of the bushes. Steve got out of the car and greeted me, putting his finger to his lips to tell me I should be quiet. Steve was very animated, telling me how neat the basement was and how great it would be to play games. I was peering down into the basement when I heard the man get out of the car and walk up behind me without slowing. I remember that sound, the look in the man's eyes and the sound of Steve chattering. I felt a wave of fear hit me and I ran. I didn't know what it was I was afraid of, but I felt it nonetheless. I booked it home and I never mentioned it to anyone. I never went back to Brian 2's house. By the next year, Brian 2 had discovered other hobbies. The rest of us stuck together until college, then we all drifted apart. I have seen the look in that man's eyes again. In law school, I interned with criminal defense lawyers, and some of those cases were for men accused of child molestation. A few of them had that same expression for a fleeting moment, but I saw it just the same. I remembered this utterly terrifying experience that I had. Today, I want to fully get it off my chest. This happened December 2025 in rural Tennessee. My ex Tiara and I had just broken up, and she was moving back home in a week. The breakup was brutal, and we hadn't slept for days. We got into a heated argument around 12 a.m., and she wanted to get a hotel room for the evening to cool down. She refused to let me get a room instead of her. We packed her suitcase, another bag, and a Brink store security bar. We stopped at what seemed to be a quiet hotel tucked away surrounded by trees and lonely roads. I pulled us to the front and parked the car at the main entrance. Upon entering, the lobby looked fine. It wasn't a roach motel, but seemed forgotten about. It was only for a night's rest and I'd be back for her in the morning. So Tiara and I agreed on not finding the nearest Ritz-Carlton and calling it a night. The clerk approached us at the counter and he was a lanky early mid-20s man with glasses, a strong foreign accent, and a very monotone voice. He had few words, made no facial expressions, and was stoic. Tiara and I both noted that off of first impressions he was odd, but left it at that. He checked us in and I told Tiara to wait there for me while I parked the car and brought in her bags. She asked me to just drop her off and leave. Tiara is very used to me taking care of us, and I know that sometimes she lacks safety awareness. I didn't want staff or guests knowing that she was staying alone. In hindsight, I think that may have been given away by her asking me to drop her off in front of the clerk. I was going to walk her to her room and make sure she was safe before eventually heading out. Well, she wasn't going to be safe. We found the room and I already did not like that it was on the main level and around the corner from the check-in counter. Anyways, I swiped the key card and it flashed red. I swiped it again. Red. The door wouldn't open. My senses were tingling and I felt uneasy. Before trying again, I pressed my ear against the door. I believe I heard shuffling. Tiara and I both quietly looked at each other. The clerk not only told us our room number, but he wrote it on the key card, so we double-checked before trying again. I swiped one more time and the door unlocked. Keep in mind that it is past 1 a.m. now. I only open the door a couple of inches and very slowly. I notice the room is dark. There's an empty beer bottle on the floor. A small amount of light is coming from the bathroom, and the toe of a dirty large men's work boot is peeking out from the other side of the bathroom door. I immediately shut the door, grab Tiara's bags, and tell her someone's in there and we're leaving. She says, "Let's just ask for another room." I tell her, "No, absolutely not. Something's wrong. This isn't safe and we're going home." We make a beeline to the front desk, and I ask the clerk if he gave us the right room. He confirmed that there are no guests on this level and all of the rooms are empty. I told him that there's someone in our room and he still has no facial expressions or change of tone in his voice. He does not even apologize and just gives us another room. I said, "No, we want a refund and we're leaving." The clerk says he needs to go in the back room for a moment and shuts the door behind him. Tiara is almost positive she sees someone else in that room. When we arrived, the clerk told us that he was the only one here tonight. All I want to do at this point is get a refund and just get us back home. My mind is screaming at me, "This isn't worth it. We will sleep at home together. Something's wrong. This isn't worth it." The clerk returns from the back room, and while he's quietly processing our refund, all of the power shuts off in the hotel. The computer, the lights, everything. The low hum of electricity is gone, and it is so silent you can hear a pin drop. The lobby is pitch black, and from the moonlight beaming through the windows, all we can see is the tall, lanky shadow of the clerk. He's standing still and has not moved while keeping his attention on us. Through the darkness, he's studying us. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't make a sound. He doesn't look around. Tiara is scared and clinging to me and frantically whispering, "I'm scared. What the hell is happening? What do we do?" I'm near panic. I can't see a thing. My heart is beating out of my chest and I don't understand anything that is happening to us tonight. I keep calm and ask the clerk, "Does this usually happen?" And without shifting an inch or losing the monotone in his voice, he just says, "No." The temperature in the room plummets. The energy is absolutely sinister and the darkness swallows us. Chills run through my body, and the silence after his response cuts like a knife. I can't think straight. Who is the person Tiara saw hiding in the back room, and why haven't they come out? Where is this person that was hiding in our room? Are they coming? It felt like we were prey and our defenses were down. My mind is running rampant. From the man hiding in our room to this moment now, is this a setup? Is it all a coincidence? I've experienced fear, but never like this. I tell Tiara, "Run." I pull her in front of me and she's running to the exit with her huge overfilled purse. I'm running with the suitcase, her other bag, and the security bar. She's pushing and banging her body against the exit in a way I've never seen her do before. We still can't see a damn thing in here, but we see light outside. The door just won't budge. I look behind us to see the shadow of the clerk. He remains standing where we left him, continuing to study us before slowly turning and walking to the back room without a word. I'm going to let her continue trying to bust down the door. If anyone attacks us from behind, I'd rather be the one to defend us. Tiara finally busts the door open and we run towards the parking lot to find my car. As we break free of the hotel, all of the lights outside are shut off on us. Tiara is screaming that she can't see, and I'm still trying not to lose it. It is again pitch black all around us, and now we are surrounded by woods. I can't decide if this is actually better than being stuck inside or not. Tiara doesn't know where I parked because I had her wait for me in the lobby while I brought her bags inside. We are barreling through the parking lot blind, and I'm crashing into the cement parking barriers with her bag sprinting towards my car. Tiara loses me. She's yelling, "Where are you? Where's the car?" And I'm telling her to follow my voice. I fumble looking for my phone in my pocket and pull out the flashlight to show her where I am. I can hear how scared she is, and I'm just trying to keep my cool so we make it out of here. I can't see a damn thing, but I remember where I parked relative to the door we exited from. We make it to the car. I find my keys, her purse that she ditched, throw everything inside, and we get the hell out of Dodge. The adrenaline I feel is insane. My hands are sweating, shaking as I drive, and I can feel my heart beating in my eardrums. My body is beat to hell from running into the parking barriers, and I think I hit my head at some point. Tiara is crying and panicking. I tell her to call the police. Whether or not something sketchy is happening there, let them find out. I've never shared this story before, and writing this feels like I'm right back in those scary moments. My mind still has a million questions about what happened that night. What if we decided to get another room after the boot incident and I left Tiara there that night? What if I let her check in alone and she entered that room? It all makes me sick to my stomach. Tiara and I have both since moved from that area and we still keep in touch. Maybe one day we'll make it work together. This is not the first time I've experienced scary people. Maybe we overreacted, but maybe we didn't. My dad always taught me to protect those that I love. I want everyone to take cautionary steps for the people that they love, regardless of if anyone paints it as paranoia or overly dramatic. There's no shame in being safe. And potential danger, please always trust your gut instincts. They are usually right.